Hello and welcome to the Bee Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast. I am thrilled to welcome from Utah in the USA, Justin Lund. Welcome to the show, Justin. How are you?
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. How are you going?
Good. Good.
Wednesday afternoon at your time, Thursday
Yep.
morning, me.
Wrapping up the day for me. So getting to the end of it. Yep. That's
Yeah.
good.
And I don't think I've shared with you, Justin, but like you're obviously in the past, I'm in the future, but like I love this whole like thing that we're both in the present together. You know what I mean? Like it's
Hmm.
funny how it works, like
Yeah.
when you look
I
at
do
back.
like that. That's cool.
Yeah, it is cool, isn't it? Anyway, we've got
Yeah.
a lot to chat about. You have quite the story, and I'm pretty thrilled to be able to chat through, no doubt, a lot of lived experiences,
Hmm.
lessons, and what you do now in terms of, it's that for me, it's that full inside out transformation from where you've been to where you are now and the impact and the positive impact and change you're making for the good. I love it. So you're the founder and CEO of Propel, which is a creative business and coaching platform, if you like, dedicated to guiding, supporting leaders, entrepreneurs, and brands expand their impact, through that growth and I guess sustained growth. You have a
Hmm.
background spanning leadership marketing, coaching, and you bring a unique blend of I would say heart and business acumen to your work. You've built a huge platform or community across. I was looking at it. It's like YouTube is huge, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. So what platform aren't you on?
Yeah, we're building some momentum. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's good.
absolutely. And the fact that you share, which I absolutely love, is your lived experience, your insights on that personal growth, the authenticity, and building a life and business with purpose. And I'm so keen to talk to you about what you were doing pre and then what got you to where you are now.
Hmm.
Um, your approach combines practical business strategy with the emphasis on that personal alignment. So helping leaders
Yeah.
and businesses not just scale, but scale in ways that feel true to who they actually are.
Hmm.
Tell us about your journey because when you booked in for the pod, I'm just going to quickly call them out. You talked about courage as the entrepreneur's edge. We as entrepreneurs, being one of them, we live in this uncertainty. So solving problems without a blueprint for the day.
Yeah.
Also faced bankruptcy, betrayal, addiction, potentially becoming a curriculum. And you talked around things most people hide or minimize. I'm going to hand it over to you. They're just some highlights that you wanted to talk about. So share it. Tell us everything.
Okay. Well, I can go through some of the backstory, but I guess what just kind of reminded me that courage thought is I do think that entrepreneurs have kind of a special knack. To me, it feels kind of normal because I've felt like I've always been like this. But my wife points it out. I see it in other people that it's just there's an interesting, unique, courageous approach that we don't have a blueprint. When we get out of bed in the morning and we go out our day, like all hell will break loose many days. Yeah, and then there's nobody there to say, yeah, oh, here's what you do in that situation, and this is how you approach that. And it's just, okay, let's figure it out.
So
And so
true.
that creates this, I've only become aware of it in the last few years, I think, that it's just that is a pretty unique characteristic that is pretty universal to entrepreneurs. And I was in a call just recently that as you reach this capacity ceiling, as entrepreneurs, we fight through these struggles, challenges, and things we face. And if you don't have the willingness to fight, like you just stop, you cash it. Like your alternative is you're not an entrepreneur, and the guy I was talking to started laughing and he thought that was kind of an interesting thought. I'm like, but it's true. Like, we run into these problems that are uncertain, they are not defined, they are like we just don't know what's going to come our way. And I think if I was on a podcast a few weeks ago, and the guy there was the COO of an organization, and they do quite a bit of revenue, and they've got a good track record. And he framed it in an interesting way that I thought was really cool. He said, "Yeah, their entrepreneurs are really good at mapping out and solving problems and building things that don't yet exist. Yet sometimes, and oftentimes in their own lives and in their own business, they don't apply those same skills. And what he as and he wasn't as entrepreneur, he's the COO, so it's not his company. He's like, that's what I do with my boss is I try to say, whoa, whoa, hold on. Let's just put all these puzzle pieces here on the table of the problems that we're dealing with. And let's just start putting the puzzle together. And it helps him to reframe his boss to tap into that sort of that thing that
Mindset.
he can do out in the marketplace that sometimes we have a hard time doing for ourselves.
Why is that? It's so interesting. You've actually brought up a really interesting point because I quite often ponder around that. I'll quite often say like, I'll go in and work with my clients and, I call it solution findings, same as problem solving, but
Yep.
the problem's never the problem, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then you come back into your own business as an entrepreneur and you're like, oh, I just did it like that. But then you come back to yours and you're like, oh, hang on a sec.
Yeah.
I've got like everything everywhere. And,
Yep.
it's interesting. It's a very interesting point that you make. And it's funny that you're bringing this up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is a I think we do have that ability that we can apply it. We can put things through that filter, that lens, and we can look at it that way. But it requires a shift and it requires a pause to become a little bit more present, a little more aware of what we're dealing with. Because often when we're out, we're looking at a problem in the client's world, or if we're, dealing like I deal with coaching situations where it's so easy for me to see. I'm like, come on, what are you doing? I can see this right here, and I'm helping people to get out of the to what's the saying? You can't see the forest for the trees. That they're in the thick of it so much that they can't see the perspective, and with perspective, it's easy to see.
Mm.
And I think we can do the same thing with ourselves, but we have to be very deliberate about doing that.
Yeah.
And it really helps to have an outside perspective and somebody that can help us, like that COO who says, let's put, he goes through the puzzle metaphor and gets his boss to slow down and reframe. And they go, wait, yeah, no, there's this piece and then there's this piece. And then it shifts gears. So it's not just kind of the hustle and bustle of keeping all these plates spinning.
Well, yeah, you juggle because you as an entrepreneur, you're juggling that many different balls. It's like,
Hmm.
it's like which one's going to land, and then it's like, oh, hang on,
Yep.
I'm going to catch this one now. I'm going to catch that one, and and,
Yep.
and so it is that constant, and like you say, it's how do we manage it in a way that's less reactive, more strategic.
Hmm.
I love your point around the need to be present and the power of the pause. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
entrepreneurs, we have this, and I'll be interested to get your thoughts on this. Like, it was something you raised before, and I was like, like I was with my brother on the weekend and he was talking to me and he made this like funny comment about because my background was, advertising and
Hmm.
communications. And he's like, oh yeah, you're all a bit different. And I'm like, what does he mean? And he's like, you're just all a bit crazy sort of thing. And I'm like, are we like, and then I was thinking about from an entrepreneurial perspective, and back to your point around being courageous,
Hmm.
it's not for everybody. Like you
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
have a certain, I mean, personality or type.
Hmm.
Do you think? Like,
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on that?
I do, and that's what my wife, she started pointing it out to me. And like I said, I wasn't unaware of this, but she began kind of bringing it to my awareness that, I go out and just, there's nobody telling me what to do. There's a
Structure.
lot of times no accountability. There's no, it's just like, it's really decoupling like how you feel from what needs to be done, because, and then the way she said it, she's like, I don't know, if I were you, half the days I'd probably just sit on the couch because I wouldn't know what to do next. I wouldn't know how to get the solution. And you and people like you just, they go out and they just start looking for solutions and they turn rocks over and they just like start hunting through the trees. It's like, I would just be like, I don't know, click, turn
Yeah.
on the tube or something. And
Yeah.
I thought, well, it's interesting. And that is a common trait that you see with entrepreneurs is we know we just have to keep going. And we have to figure something out. There's no alternative, which can be bad too. You can definitely get some leverage out of it, but if you also need to have it in balance, as with everything in life, you have to have balance in things, or you can hit burnout, or you can chase good money after bad. You can go into a lot of spiraling negative behaviors that, I have clients that are 20, 25 years in business and they've just been stuck at this same kind of area where they feel miserable. They're getting decent results, but they can't break through up, but they won't tolerate going too far down. And so it's just like this grind. And that's I just got to keep going. So that's the kind of, there can be a little bit of a dark side to it, I think, but
Yeah.
that's where I like to help people see that and try to make a transformation through that ceiling that might be holding them back so that they can really leverage that power. And it's really about their focus. I think if they're just focused on so we become very habitual in the things that we do to save energy, to conserve our energy. So we do the same thing over and over and over again. And then we get stuck in solving these problems. And then, it's just like, I got 10 minutes. I'm going to jump into my email real quick. And then all of a sudden that becomes the habit where it could be an hour and a half of every day. We're just going to jump into our email for a minute. And it's like, well, what if we were very intentional about that
Yeah,
hour?
I
What
agree.
if we could stop that habit and then redeploy that hour and a half doing something else? And, in one of my calls earlier, there was one of my clients landed 28, no, $84,000 in jobs yesterday. And he's like, he was feeling good. He's like, yeah, I got out of this stuff because I'm helping him kind of delegate some of the admin work and some of the lower stuff. And he's like, I got $84,000 of cash we'll collect next week. Like it's right there. And it's interesting to see that as soon as he shifted his gears and starts thinking and focusing on where can I get a higher ROI, where can I,
High value.
he lit up. Yeah, he lit up and he was like standing up in his chair and like just bouncing around. And
Yeah.
3 weeks ago, we're talking about all the admin and the invoicing, and he's like, yeah.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like the low value versus the high value. And we get, like, to your point around the habitual behaviors that we have, we get so caught in this low value. I think it's also quick dopamine hits, right? Because sometimes
Yes.
you're avoiding the higher value because
Yep.
back to your problem solving piece, it's like, I've actually got work to do here. Whereas
Yep.
I just jump into this low value, which is what I see in clients. It's like, it's surface stuff.
Yeah.
And then, but
And at least you can feel good about getting a few emails done, right? You
yes.
can like,
Yeah,
it
I
gives you that
think,
dopamine.
yeah,
You kind of check a couple boxes, but in reality,
yeah,
you probably could have paid somebody like $15 an hour to do the same thing for you just as good. And you could have been
totally.
out there solving real problems.
Yeah,
And that's the
totally.
trap.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So t I want to just shift, I want to just go back a step because
Sure.
you've got quite an interesting background story, and we don't need to go into like the past as such, but
Yeah,
you
whatever you want to get into,
you
for sure.
talked around good business and bad business, and in terms of your business now, Propel, that came from lived experience of what not to do in business in terms of what success looks like what the shiny. This is just me, my
Hmm.
from our conversations that
Hmm.
we had. But from let's call it shiny materialistic, right? Versus having a business with purpose and like that fulfillment piece and
Hmm.
I think that all successful businesses today and into the future need to start with a place of purpose or a place of, coming from a place of fulfillment, for example.
Yeah.
What was the shift for you from your old world and
Hmm.
your old career, if you like, into then coming into the business you're in now and what you're doing with the businesses and the leaders that you're working with? Can you share a little bit about that, please?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. You bet. I'd love to. So I'm a pretty stubborn person, a hard-headed person. So the universe has to give me really strong indications sometimes for me to listen.
Me too.
Um, yeah. So we have some of those common traits, I
Yeah.
know. And in my case, I had gone through, we'd built a big business up. It was doing nearly 9 figures of revenue. And I had somebody that was a part of that had really siphoned off tens of millions of dollars off the balance sheet and ran off with that and left me with big tax debts. And so it was literally born like I didn't become enlightened someday and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to find some purpose. It was fighting through that battle of realizing what I had done wrong the first time, and that was really avoiding the things that were difficult. I avoided the financial reviews. I avoided things in the moment, especially when cash flow was flush and I just had enough to do whatever I wanted to at any time.
Yeah.
Um, I mean that it was a lot of cash flow was circulating, so there was,
No
and that
need
was
to
never
look
my
at.
strong suit. Yeah, and I'm not good with numbers kind of stuff. And I still am not. I mean, I don't hang out in spreadsheets to party. That's not where I go have fun. So it's not my lane, but I've learned, and that's the universe's kind of lesson here. It gave me a PhD in learning that you can't just avoid the things that are difficult. So I had to go through 4.5 years of litigation to kind of sort through all the crazy complex web of
Wow.
crazy deceit and things that were going on. And so Propel was actually born as a result of that. Halfway through that process, about 2.5 years in, I had a friend of mine call, and she was kind of the visionary entrepreneur, and she's great. We've been friends for 20 years, and she's just always fast and loose. She's always got a good idea. She's always talking fast. She's always just running circles around
High
people. But then,
energy.
yeah, and then she's gone. You're like, wait, what the hell just happened? What, you know? She called and said, "Can you help me? Don't you have people that do like payroll and taxes and shit like that?" I'm like, yeah. I mean, I was in the middle of a lawsuit I had forensic accountants and tax attorneys, and
Wow.
there's probably like 10 professionals, three of which were on my full-time payroll, and then there was a firm that we had retained that had all these others. And I'm like, I guess, sure. She's like, could you do that for me, please, 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 please? Could you just help me? I mean, she was just going a million miles an hour. So we set up an entity and began doing just payroll for her and one employee. It was really small, just a little thing. So it was no big deal. I said, sure, I'll just, whatever that takes them in their time, you can pay me whatever that costs. And it was nothing. It was maybe a couple $100 a month. But for her, it was a game changer because she did not have to think about all this stuff. And we got reports to her that like, this is what payroll is going to be. This is how much you need to transfer, just simple stuff. It wasn't like big financial data sets. It was just a simple email that she could quickly be like, okay, approved. Let's go. And then I started working with her because knowing what I was going through, like all of this litigation and the cause of it by being ignorant with all my details. So I started having these calls with her just as a friend. Like, look at this. I can have the guys build a report for you that isn't big and complicated. And she's like, I'm like, don't do that. Don't do that. That's what I did. And
Yeah.
that was bad.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
so she's like, yeah, that was bad for you. So maybe I should listen. So I got into this kind of lane where I was doing coaching essentially, but it was just talking to a friend. And I had professionals that were helping her with some of these administrative tasks. She loved it. She told five or six of her friends. And then we started getting phone calls from them. And so we decided, well, we'll help them. And at first it was just, whatever. We weren't making money. We were just trying to help. Within a year, we had 50 clients that we were
Wow.
doing that for. They told their friends and they told their friends. We didn't have a website. We didn't have a business entity set up. We had nothing. It was just, and so we realized, hey, this kind of works. I was doing more of the mindset and the talking about how you can get the numbers to work for you and how you can be aware, but still delegate the stuff that is not your strong suit.
Yeah,
Pull.
like you say, spreadsheets. So it's not my, I don't love sitting in a spreadsheet, but you've got to be across it, like in terms, you've got to be over it and you've got to be in it. Like I think,
Right.
like it's like that bell curve I always draw
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
a
You
lot of
can't just, you
sit
can't
over
just
the top.
abdicate, you
Like,
can't just totally get it off of your plate and be ignorant. You've got to have some financial awareness and you need to kind of start making, and that's something that I learned through that process is that my approach to it in the beginning was because I'm so what I thought inept at that stuff. And I'm really good over here with business development and relationship management and landing these big deals. So I was taking this on, feeling good, and just avoiding anything that would make me feel lesser. And that was where I was taken advantage of. Like somebody came in and saw my weakness, exploited my living daylights out of it, took everything. So that is how Propel was born.
So
And it
interesting. It's so interesting, and ego comes up for me straight away in terms of, we've all got an ego, right? And so
sure.
quite
Yeah.
often we play in the space that makes us feel good. It's that ego. It's like, you're amazing at this. Why do that? Because you're crap at it. So stick over here
Yeah.
because that's it's a dent in your ego. Your ego
Hmm.
literally got stripped bare. Like you literally had to like like
Yes.
your ego died and you had to
Yeah.
rebirth as like, coming back and almost like
Yep.
drop that ego completely.
Yeah.
And
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 that's now I get the opportunity to talk to people about that experience and about that whole mess. And that's kind of become my message is you don't have to be, so if it's numbers and accounting and spreadsheets, I'm not suggesting that you should go take an accounting course and become a CPA and do taxes for a living. Stay in your lane, but
bit,
start to put systems in place that you can be over it, that you can learn just a little tomorrow, a little next month, a little next quarter, so that you're aware of what's going on and you're not just totally asleep at the wheel. Because having a head in the sand as your strategy is just, that's not a strategy.
yeah. So at what point in that first year of Propel, like where you were just like, wait, did you ever have moments of, oh my goodness, like here we go again. Like, can I do this? Like, was there any like form of self-doubt after the experience you've come out of, or was it just
I
I
don't know that there was. It maybe later, because I started to get in. So I guess so, but it was a couple years later because there was really no effort put into it, and I was so busy and distracted with the lawsuit and things that I wasn't
Mysterious
like they
attacks?
would.
Yeah.
Yeah, these guys would call and say, "Hey, I'm Sarah's friend. Could you help?" And I'd say, "I guess." And I talked to our guys, and they would have a little bit of time. I'm like, "Okay, we'll do that," and I wouldn't even think about it. And then I started to see like, "Hey, this is turning into this is a pattern. Like every person we talk to, they're sending three or four people for us to talk to. I mean, if this keeps up, we're gonna have to hire more people." So it almost sprang up on me so fast that I don't know that I had a chance to think about that, to be honest. Um, but then I started to think I'm gonna do things differently this time around. And then the lawsuit started to come to an end, and I was able to settle that. And that I was so burnt after I had spent 4.5 years for all day long. I'd take my kids to school, I'd come back, and I would sit in the office and I'd read a stack of legal brief papers this big, and I'd have highlighters and pens and different colored ink, and I'd just go through each page and then do this. And I was shipping packages back and forth to lawyers and FedEx all every day, and it was insane. That's all I did almost every day. So when this came up for my friend and I got to have a conversation every couple of weeks about her business, it was like, oh, yes, I'll take that. That's
Did
way
it feel
better than
like
talking about
therapy?
this bullshit over here.
Yeah, right. Did it feel like therapy for you too? Like you
Yeah.
were giving this your friends like advice,
Yeah.
mindset advice, but
Yeah.
it's probably a mirror like staring at you in terms of
Oh, for sure. A
yeah.
hundred percent.
So
Yeah,
sometimes it's like,
exactly.
oh, I could actually help here, and it's not just,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. For sure. So after that, we traveled. I had a thought came to me that we went on a vacation right after that ended, and the vacation was in Hawaii. And while we were there for 10 days, I saw someone dragging a surfboard out to go surfing, and I was just sitting there having a cup of coffee in the morning. The sun was just coming up, and I thought, I wonder what it'd be like to live here as a local. And that was like 5 or 6 days in, and I just kind of kept thinking about that. Ah, that'd be nice.
yeah,
And then we went all the way back to Vermont and went home. And I have four kids, they're the oldest was only maybe like 10, 12, 13. I don't know, in that range. And that the idea just kept coming back to me like local in Hawaii. And so I'm like, I wonder what that would be like. And I mentioned it to my wife. She's like, yeah, that seems cool. I'm like, I think she just gave me permission. So the next day, I picked up the phone, I grabbed a few condos in Hawaii that I'd call some realtors and some condos. And I asked, like, I wanted to move in. Is there any availability? And they're like, yeah, what do you think? I'm like, I don't know, a week or two. I'm like, you're crazy. No, maybe in a year or 6 months or, maybe 3 months. But then I found one. It was like the seventh call I think I made. And they said, would you be willing to move? Because I said, I want 6 months. I want to come and I want to be a local. I want to live there. I'm not going to bring anything but a suitcase. So it's got to be furnished, the whole thing. And this finally, the seventh call was, they said, could you move halfway through? I'm like, I don't care. Like same building, same area. They're like, yeah. I mean, just down the hall, probably. I'm like, yeah, no
That's it.
problem. So within 7 days, we were back in Hawaii for the next 6 months, and that was there. So Propel was still going. It was small, it was just getting going. But I thought I'm not going to just make that my grind, and I'm going to empower other people. I'm going to train my team up, and I'm going to put people in place, and I'm going to make sure that I just don't trade time for money and that I don't get in a situation where I'm just focused on money. And we spent 6 months in Hawaii and it felt like 3 years because we didn't do everything the same. Like
Yeah.
there weren't the habits. It wasn't just go to this desk, check in, clock in, do the same thing. So it really stretched time. It was amazing.
And do you think
Um,
that was the big defining moment for you, like in terms of transition from old you, old, like, I guess, version of what success looked like, and that Hawaii, that 6 month period, enabled you to almost like reset from the inside out in terms of just going, right, okay, what do I truly want now? Like, and to be able to almost process also what had just happened. You've just had 4 years of intensity.
yeah.
Burnout, you need to just be able to sit. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's just like shutting your eyes and just no noise coming in, no talking.
Hmm.
Like, do you
Yeah,
feel
it
like
was.
a turning
It
point?
was. There was a part of that. I don't know that there was a big aha moment. It was again, like I said, the universe sometimes has to work me down and mold me kind of slowly, and that was definitely part of it. And I wanted to show my kids that you can do what you want. You can
Yeah.
if you want to do something, like the world's your oyster. You can if you can dream it and you can conceive it, you can achieve it. And so I was trying to set that kind of an example for them. And then we went from Hawaii to Europe, and then we spent the next 6 months with no plans. We had a 2 day Airbnb, and then from there we just trains to wherever we wanted to go, and we figured it out on the way. And that was just a crazy, wild adventure. The same thing. So those two experiences were definitely life changing. Changed the dynamic of our family. Showed us a lot of the world. That was really cool. But it was a forcing function, I guess, B, in terms of because I was invested in another business, I got kind of because I always like to be involved with something, but I was convinced and I told myself, my wife, my family, like I'm not going to go back to work like I was before.
Yeah.
I'm not going to commit to because my first two kids were born, I was traveling a lot. Like I had addiction issues and problems. I had to go through rehab. And then I got the business going and I was traveling a lot. In fact, my third child was born. My wife went into labor and called me, and I was in a different state across the country. And I'm like, breathe. There's no way for me to get home until tomorrow. It was like midnight. And so she just tried to stay calm and out of the hospital. And I raced home as fast as I could just in time to take her to the hospital and be there. But so I almost missed the third child being delivered. And and so there was those moments where it's like I don't we had a lot of success and things were great, but it's not the pace I wanted. So I started to develop another kind of a question or hypothesis like could I build something again without that? Do I need to travel? Do I need to hustle as much? So these traveling Hawaii put me on a totally different time zone than anything I was working with, right? And so I got up there in the morning and there was only a couple of hours of work left for everybody else on the East Coast before they're all going home. And so I'm like, yeah, it's
It
10
slowed
a.m.
you
in
down.
Hawaii.
Slowed you
Yeah.
down. Yeah.
So 10 a.m. in Hawaii and everybody's wanting to leave for the day. And I'm like, yes. So I have all day. Nobody's calling. This is great. So they were forcing functions for me. And then I went to Europe and went on the opposite side of the time zones. And now it's the other way around, where I'd get up and it was only the end of the day that they were just getting started. I'm like, sorry, I'm going to bed. And I was kind of working on testing, could I develop the systems and the discipline to have things run without me being the guy that has to have all the
Lock in the wheel.
answers?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the thing. Like there was, I guess there was one moment I was talking about recently that was I was in Zermatt, Switzerland, and this fantastic, the Matterhorn, huge mountain, massive mountain in the background. And we went there for 2 nights, but we loved the little charming village that it was up in the mountains. So we extended and stayed there for like a week or 8 days or something. And while there in this cute little town where everything is battery operated, so there's no cars with gasoline. It's just all like little golf carts and stuff driving around. It's pretty cute. Um, I got a call from one of my guys, a text message, and he said, "This invoice hasn't been paid. This client's pissed, and I think you should know about it because this, usually never happens." And I got on the phone, talked to him, and said, "Okay, so slow down. What's going on? What's the deal? Did you follow the process?" And he asked me like, "Well, what? This never happens. I don't think we have a process." And I said, "We do actually. I think if you look here and here," and I kind of reminded him of what a playbook we created years ago that in certain cases, then you follow this protocol. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, never mind. Okay, let me try that." And then I said, "Okay, cool. Let me know how it goes. I'm going to be going to bed soon, so I'll check my messages when I get up in the morning. We'll see how it goes, and I'll plan on just talking to you. And if I need to call the client tomorrow, I will. Just let them know." I got up in the morning to a text that said, "We're all good. Invoice paid." I thought, it works. Okay, you can do this, but you have to front load the work. You have to have the discipline to actually put some systems in place so that everything doesn't come through you.
No,
And so in that one,
it's so interesting. Sorry, but it's so interesting. And I just want to pause there for a second because you seem like the sort of person that's all in, right? And like and I could be wrong here. I'm an all in kind of girl as well, like woman, I should say.
yeah,
But you know what I mean? And when you're the cog in the wheel, like when everything's wrapped around you in a business, sometimes it's like coming back to this ego piece as well. Is like
totally.
you like the control. You like the
Yeah.
control. But
Hmm.
you also then hate the control at times because you're like, why is everything coming through me when you're at that exhaustion point,
That's what I
right?
asked
Or
for.
you're at
Yeah.
capacity and then,
Yep.
things can pop up like addictive behaviors and, you
Hmm.
work hard, you play hard because you're just like, you come to the end of the day and you're like, like, do you know what I mean? Like you
Yep.
see how it happens.
Yeah.
You seem though, listening to you right now and just even talking about that, then you've just let go. Like you've just had this ability to be able to let go. How did you get yourself to that? Because I'm very similar in terms of the universe has to almost slap me in the face at times where I'm like,
Well, and that has happened many, many times. And so I'll say that I can thank God and the universe for those things. And I think that's the lesson. And honestly, B, I think that's probably why I have the path that I have, is so that I can try to share this message now. Like I was all in. I did need it all. And it is hugely addicting. And I talk to founders every single day that are like, "Oh, everybody comes to me for everything and I hate it." I'm like, "That's the system you built, man." Like,
and
that's
you're gonna
how.
break it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you got to recognize that you're getting a payoff for that, and you don't want to face the fact that you're getting a payoff for that. And as soon as you're ready to let go of that payoff, I'll show you some better payoffs. And so, B, in that moment, my payoff was looking at the Matterhorn in real life, and I'm like, do I want to be the hero that solves some dumbass $14,000 invoice? I don't give two shits about that invoice. I got all my kids right here.
And the
We're
Matterhorn.
looking at this mountain. Yeah. I got this cute little village. And my favorite memory from that whole place, we had this condo on the side of the mountain, and you'd have to go up like, I forget how many steps it was, but it was metal steps because in the winter, obviously, it's just covered in snow. So they're all metal. And my littlest boy, he was probably 3 when we were there. And by the time we were there for 3 days, he would see the steps and he would just sit down and start crying
Oh,
because
that's
he
it.
because he knew that he had to climb these steps. And I was just pulling that in as like a metaphor, like, there are a lot of steps here. There's a lot of steps in a lot of things. So, but do you want to get up there and enjoy the house and the view and lunch or do we want to sit here and cry about it? Like, no, come on, man. Let's go. Let's go
Yeah.
up those
There's
stairs.
something to
We'll
explore
figure
here.
it out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell me, with Propel, like you're working with a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of businesses that are scaling. What do you see as one of the biggest I guess consistent is the wrong word. One of the no, yeah, what's one of the most consistent patterns you see in leaders and businesses that are scaling that is hindering them from taking that next step. Let's use a step
Hmm.
analogy.
Okay. Um, I would say probably the most common is hiring out of order. So as entrepreneurs, and it's back to that trait thing again, right? Like as entrepreneurs, we have this trait of going into the unknown. Like we'll just jump in, we'll dive in, we'll plunge ahead. We know we can solve this problem. In the US, there used to be this old television show called MacGyver.
I don't know
And
MacGyver. I actually
okay,
like the
so
show.
this guy could solve anything, right? A piece of gum, a post-it note, and he could get out of any jam. And that's what entrepreneurs are like. They just know there's this inner trust somewhere that they can solve the problem. And that is good in many cases, but it also can be bad because when they start getting this capacity ceiling that we're talking about, that this level where it's like they're not sure, it's just a little bit outside of their experience and their expertise, or it starts to go into these areas where they're not quite as strong and the ego kind of wants to pull them back. Um, they look for solutions like MacGyver would, and instead of being maybe more realistic, they start fantasizing about or romanticizing about something that could be like this one size fits all magic. I call it unicorn hunting, right? They think they're going to find this magical mythical creature that's going to come in and be the yin to their yang, or the operator to their vision, or and it puts them out of touch with reality.
Yeah,
And all that usually does, 99 out of 100 times, is they hire somebody that's too expensive. They have no SOPs or playbooks or protocols. And they bring somebody in that they pay them 10 grand, 20 grand a month, some high paid person. 6 months later, they end up leaving or firing them.
yeah,
And now they're just pissed that they don't have the money. It's like, well, you should have started with something else. You don't jump to a COO for your first
no,
big, like
agree.
that's not the way to scale. So that's one of the main, I see that almost every day. Even with people that have 25 people on their team, they still lack some of that foundational, they still don't have playbooks, they don't have SOPs, they don't
Yeah,
have processes. It
yeah.
still runs through the man or woman at the top.
Yeah, I mean, I love a good playbook. I'm all about the playbook, and I'm all about the systems, right? You can't have a culture without a system, and you can't have a system without a culture. And I don't care how small your business is, like you have to establish those foundations from the outset. And that
Hmm.
starts with strategy, right? That starts with, well, what's your strategy? What's your plan on a page? What's your business strategy?
Yeah,
So that you've got something to tangibly work off. And I quite often see time and time again that there is no strategy in place. And it's just like
absolutely. It's not even, it's even worse than that in most cases. It's not even a lack of strategy, it's a lack of even any sense of clarity sometimes.
Mm.
And often I will talk to, well, let me say it this way. Rarely do I ever ask somebody when I'm bringing in a new client and say, look, okay, well, what's the goal for the business in the next year, 2, 3, or 5? The answers that I usually get are like to be better, to make more, to have some independence. I'm like, how the hell do you measure that? And how are we going to put a plan together for that? So the first step we usually figure out is just getting clear. Well, I usually start with trying to get some quick wins because people don't want to talk about their feelings or their goals
I
or their
know, I
vision.
know.
So it's like, all right, let's get to it. Let's put some systems in place. Let's relieve a little bit of the pressure because most
It's
people come to me when they're in a sense of pressure. They're feeling like, ah. So we try to relieve a little bit of that. And then I quickly go right back to vision because, like you said, without a strategy or a vision, without any clarity on what we're doing, why we're doing it, it's very hard to, you can't hit a target that you can't see.
no.
You know?
It's for me, it's about letting them come to the awareness that actually it starts from here within. It's
Yeah.
you're part of the I hate using the word problem because it's such a negative thing, right? But like
Yeah.
you're part of what is possible. You're part of like, but at the moment you're in this situation where you're stuck. And
Hmm.
you know what I'm finding really interesting, and it's something that it doesn't keep me awake at night. And I'd love your thoughts on this, but it definitely is because we're the world we're in is just so external facing and outward facing, and it's like we were going on about the dopamine hits and what success, if I achieve this, I'll get this, and then I want more and I want more and I want more. We've got this really I want more, and the more I get, the happier I'll be. And it's
Hmm.
BS. Like, you know it, I know it. Like, you're only happy once you've worked out, well, actually, what fulfills me, what makes me, like, because we can keep chasing everything else, but what are we truly running away from? In
Yeah.
terms of the businesses and the leaders you work with, one of the big things, and I'd love your thoughts on this, is that I see is it's back to what you were just saying before around it's so profit commercial driven, and I'm all about the profit, don't get me wrong. You've got to have a healthy successful business, but I just think we've got the order so far out of, it's just not in order anymore for me, like in
Hmm.
terms of, I feel like we need to kind of shift it a little bit so that, you know quite often it's like, oh, I'm not making any money, it's not successful. And it's like, but well, why? Like, because once you work out actually, well, what actually is going on, profit follows. Like, it's like that whole energy piece, right? For me, in terms of,
Hmm.
and I don't know if I'm making sense here, but yeah, I just think we get so attached to the commercial, the profit, and yet we
Hmm.
we need to look elsewhere. And it's back to this problem solution finding to go, actually, well, what actually is causing this? And then if we just take the levers off that, the profit will follow because people will be engaged, people will be intrinsically motivated. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
probably not making sense here, but
No, I think that there's definitely, I mean, there's some greed and misalignment, and things are out of balance in a lot of industries, in a lot of different businesses for sure. And it's easy to just mask that under the premise of, well, we need to maintain our profit margins. And so, no, I don't agree with any of that. I definitely think the profits are healthy.
100%.
I think also that, like, desires for wealth, I think are okay too.
I
But
agree.
it depends on your intention. I guess the direction that it's coming from, like, why do you want it? And
Yeah,
I can pull up on my phone my notes of my 25-year vision and what I want to do with it and where I want to be and the things I want to, like, the reasons that I want. I have a big picture of wealth in my future, but I think it's pretty positively motivated. I want to be able to help other people. I want to be able to give back, and I want to make an impact. And
and
so,
that's my
like,
point. That's the difference,
yeah,
right? We need more of that.
yeah, yeah,
We need more of that in
yeah.
the world. And so, how do we bring more of that into the world? I guess is what, like, we need to be talking more about that. And,
I think it's alignment. So, if you were to ask me
yeah,
how, my answer to the question would be aligning, and that's why once when I work with founders, again, like I said, I usually need to focus on something really tactile and, like, strategic right away, because people don't want to talk about feelings and goals and things right away. That usually needs to come later after there's kind of some proof. But if I can help somebody who just feels stretched and taxed to get 10 hours back to their week, and then they're like, whoa, okay, that's noticeable. That's a big deal. Now what can we do? Well, come back with me over here. We're going to get clear on what is the vision, what's the
yeah,
purpose. And that starts to create alignment with decisions, because if we get clear on this distant, I like to go 20, 25 years out, get a picture for what really motivates you. Because most people can do this if you guide them and they give you an hour or so. Because you can think about, like, do I have kids? How old were they going to be? Will they have grandkids? Will I have this? Will I have, what am my age? I'm going to be how old? So you can kind of get your imagination going. And then you think, now, what do you want life to be like? Where do you live? Do you have, I was like, well, shit, I'd really like to have
well,
this, or,
yeah,
I'd like to have a beach house by then, I want to spend some time at the beach. So these things start coming up. It's like, okay, well, what's that going to take? Now there's a reason and a method for, I want to accumulate enough wealth so that I can have a beach house because that fills my soul and I love the ocean. Now all of a sudden we have these deeper things that are driving, and then we can work backwards into what do we need to do in 10 years to make sure that 25-year vision is, like, inevitable.
Yeah, I love it.
And you can do the same. Yeah, and I come all the way back to 1 year to where we have an action list, like 8, 10, 12 things maximum. These are the 10 or 12 things that we're going to keep an eye on this year and really work towards, because every one of them gets us closer to that 25-year vision. So it's hard to think in 25-year terms all the time, but thinking in 6 to 12 months, we can do
Yeah,
that a
I
little
agree.
easier. We can kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, we can do that and then get back to our dopamine hit, and like do the things we all have these habits around. But if we do that, and I think the second important part of that, sort of those ingredients, is drawing out and getting perspective. I do it quarterly. And then a deeper, even further out annually. My wife and I do this together, where we go out of town every quarter for 2, 3 days, hotel, no kids, and we just talk about where our goals are. Last time we dropped two of our goals off the list completely because we could recognize, in terms of alignment, every hour spent on these goals is going to be really taking away from this other part of goals that are way more important at this stage of our life. And in the beginning of the year, when we put that other goal on the list, we thought it's doable.
Yeah, I think it's
Halfway
good.
through the year, no.
I agree. I think it's good to be able to, like switch up your goals. I did it last week. I worked on my business strategy again because I was like, I just feel like it needs like,
Hmm.
a bit of adapting, iterating on from the earlier this year. And I'm glad I did it because it's moved on and
Correct.
in
Yeah,
different.
and I'm sure it gives you a better, and that's what I think is missing. That if people did more of that, there'd be maybe some less greed and less of that profit centric, focused commercial stuff. But it also has so much other positive benefits to keep layering, because now if you get with more clarity, something comes up today or tomorrow or the next day, you could very easily say no to something that last week you may have said, yeah, maybe, okay.
Yeah, you're setting more
But yeah,
boundaries. Yeah, it's the
yeah,
iterating. I'm conscious of our time. I've got one question for you. And I got to
sure.
questions generally come to me about I well, I've actually got two. So what does Propel like what's the plan? Like what's the intention for Propel? You've got this 25-year vision. Like
Mhm.
what's your intention for Propel over the next, I don't know, 24 months?
Well, I'd like to get to 50,000 followers across social platforms, and business owners. I want business owners to come follow me, and I want to share some of the things that I've done and to help unlock them, whether it's just hiring the right person at the right time instead of going at the wrong time to the wrong person, or just thinking about finances, or simple, stupid things that could just save so much, like meeting with your CPA once. I have simple playbooks that could really, I mean, they're battle tested and they've cost me millions of dollars through the school of really hard knocks. And so I want to share that. And as I talk to more, so that's phase one, is get 50,000 people to follow on socials so that I can share some of that message and that can benefit and help other entrepreneurs, a new generation of entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
not make the same mistakes that I did, to
Yeah.
learn from those mistakes. And in doing that, it gives me this great, I get a lot of interaction with them as they come and follow me, and our followers are going up, and we're getting a lot of momentum. Um, but it lets me talk to them, and I DM with them all the time, like in my free time. I love it. My kids are older now, so I don't have nearly the kind of commitments
Yeah,
with my kids'
absolutely. Yeah,
schedules.
totally interact. Yeah.
So I get to DM people, and they tell me what they're struggling with and what they're working on and what they're building, and just all kinds of things. And I just love that, and it helps me to kind of build into my curriculum, into my content, and
Yeah.
into, like, how can I take my story now and apply it to this so that I can help more people that are dealing with, because back when I was building stuff, there was no Instagram. I didn't, I got Instagram for the first time last year, 2024. I logged in for the first time in my life. And so it's just a different landscape. So learning some of those platforms is fun, and the reach that it can have to affect and impact. I'm really shooting for 50,000 business owners this year. So,
Love it. And then
yeah.
what would be one piece of advice or tip, given that you are obviously doing a lot of that, real time, would you give, and I love it because there is this new generation coming through, the new
Mhm.
generation of entrepreneurs. Like what would be one piece of advice you'd give them that you would do differently if you were the next generation of entrepreneurs from what you've, yeah.
Yeah. Um, don't let your ego call the shots. When there's things that you aren't good at doing, you don't have to jump all the way to the end and be like a world-class expert. And that's what I did a lot of. Like, I'm not good with numbers, so I'm going to stay all the way out of it because for me to get good at numbers, I got to get a master's degree in accounting. Bullshit. No, I could have met with my CPA once a quarter and just gotten a little bit better. So don't let that happen. And if you're scaling, um, the piece of advice that I'd give you there is just start low on a delegate things that are more administrative to begin with and remember the value of your time. So if your time,
So
you can
good.
figure out how much you get paid based on the amount of revenue you bring in and the time in a year. There's 2,080 hours if you work full time, 52 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, I mean. So do the math and figure out what your hourly rate is. And if you're spending 10 hours a week doing things that are way below what you can bring in the marketplace, start thinking about how you could delegate just those so that you can get more
Yeah.
return as you scale.
Love it. Great. Great.
That's it.
Justin, so good to chat to you. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, same. Thanks,
How do
B.
we find out more about you? I've got every one of I've got your website, your LinkedIn, I've got your Instagram, I've got your YouTube, I've got your Facebook. I guess, and I'll put it in the show notes. I guess, where's the best place to communicate with you?
Yeah, probably on socials is the easiest one, and we're on TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and to that point, I would say that if anybody here is feeling like they're at that point of scaling, or they're feeling a little taxed or stretched, like I have a founder freedom playbook that you can have. It talks about how to check your time, evaluate your time value, and then what kind of tasks need to be delegated first. And it really unlocks kind of that first level. Just come over to Instagram and send me a DM and say freedom, and I'll shoot it over to you. So
Amazing. You're the best.
follow me. I just asked to follow me. That's all, because I want followers.
Yeah,
Trying to
okay,
get to
cool. Yeah, yeah,
50,000.
yeah. I get it. I get it. I love it. It's awesome. Thank you so much, Justin. I'm going to let you get to your evening. It's been
Yeah,
a
thank you, B.
real joy talking to you, and yeah, have a wonderful
Awesome.
evening. Thank you.
Thanks. You too.